Hello there, it's Sandy from We Are Talk of Thailand, and today's video is a result of a request from one of my subscribers actually, if I could look into what the options are for making preparations and planning for the end of life here in Pattaya and here in Thailand. And that is the whole purpose of this video actually, something that all us people who have retired here, or the expats who have come here and have no intention of returning or leaving Thailand, then it's something that will affect us all at some stage. So if this is of interest to you, then please keep watching, because there's a lot of useful information in this video. Thank you. Okay, this video, it's something that we should all be thinking about. And before I start, actually, I would like to ask all those who view this video if they would do us a favor, please. And that is, if you find this information in this video of use or interesting, because we have put a lot of effort and time and resources into obtaining the information in this video and visiting the various sites, I would request that you, if you haven't done already, please subscribe to the channel and please like the video. It's only a small thing for you to do, but it makes a whole world of difference to us and our efforts here and what we're doing with the YouTube videos. So please think about it, and if you can, please do as we ask. Much appreciated. So, the video itself, I've got some notes here because there's a lot of aspects in this video that and a lot of questions that have been asked by the person who asked us to make such a video, that I don't really want to miss anything out. Of course, this is something that will affect us all, and whether you're living alone, or whether you've got a partner, or you're married, making a plan for your end of life is something that you should think about doing, because it's a responsibility that we should take seriously. I would also ask you to consider, if you've not done so, making a will, because that will remove any ambiguity about your wishes once you've departed. And I think that may assist those left behind greatly. So as I say, I've had several questions asked, and most of these will be approached during the video, but there's one or two points that I'd like to just clarify now, if I may, and go through these questions just so we know where we are. Now, the first question they asked is, does Thailand have modern cremation facilities, or is it still mostly cremations are done on wood pyres, as he's seen in other videos, or as he's heard people talk about? Well, I've seen some of these videos as well, and yes, I don't suppose it's that uncomfortable for the incumbent that's being cremated, but it doesn't look very good, and it makes you think. So the answer is, actually, the majority of Thailand is much more modernized than what you see, but that still happens. Those wood pyres, particularly in the north of Thailand, out in the sticks, where they can't afford to have the modern cremation facilities installed, and the population is quite sparse, so they're quite happy to continue with the way that they've always done, and I can understand that. But here in the more populated areas of Thailand, i.e. Bangkok and Pattaya and all the other areas, etc., where there is a sizable populations, then the majority of temples with cremation facilities, which is most of them I believe, do have modern cremation facilities. In that, here in Pattaya, I'm told that virtually all the cremation facilities are oil-fired, which is the fuel of choice here in Pattaya, as it is in many other populated areas, I'm told. It's oil-fired with electronic controlled, so it's a very highly efficient incineration project, highly efficient incineration process that and makes an effective cremation quite easy. Other areas, they've chosen to go with the gas facility as opposed to oil-fired, and that's equally as efficient, still electronic controlled, and the whole aspect is an efficient, a very efficient operation. When the cremation is complete, which is quite quickly actually, the remains are normally ready for collection the following day. They're normally presented in a blanket of sorts, tied up at the top, for the relatives to do as they wish with, and that's the way it ends up. So, yes, they do have modern cremation facilities here in Thailand. Is cremation the only option available here in Thailand? Good question, because it's not. No, it's not. There is an option to be buried also. If that's your preference, then that option is available. Here in Chonburi, we've got a couple of cemeteries actually. There's one in Pattaya. There's also another cemetery, very famous one in Bangkok, where there's a lot of the Thai history is in there with famous people and some infamous people also buried there. And there's also a cemetery up in Chiang Mai actually, and the cemetery in Chiang Mai is also where they do the cremations also. So that's one of the. So you do have all the options in these places, of course, and anywhere actually, anywhere in Thailand, you can opt for the burial option, but it may just be a bit more inconvenient and a bit more expensive to have it carried out because of the travel required to get to the necessary facilities. However, that's it. The next question is a good one also, is not being a Buddhist, are all cremations, and let's say burials also, are they required to have a Buddhist ceremony? Now, the answer to that is no, the Buddhist ceremony is not required. Most of us here in Thailand that are expats or retirees are not Buddhists, and we want to depart in whatever religion we have or whatever beliefs we have, and we want to depart this life with whatever is required by those beliefs, etc. I'm told that all temples, actually with the cremation facilities, will provide a ceremony-free cremation. It's only a case of asking for it, and it's quite a low-cost option as well, compared with the options that may be involved along with the Buddhist ceremonies, which includes so many days and etc. and mourning and blah blah blah. Where the cremation of a expat or a retiree can be fairly straightforward. It's in and out and done and dusted, so to speak. So there we are. I was also asked about paperwork. Obviously, before you can be cremated or buried, all the necessary paperwork has to be in place, and that is a responsibility of the relatives left behind to ensure that they get all the necessary paperwork together and present that to the temple or whoever's going to be conducting the funeral, to present them with all the necessary papers to allow it to go ahead. In some cases, I believe that also requires that they inform the embassies here in Bangkok, etc., from the homelands about the death, and get some sort of certification from the embassy also. And the other question that's related to it actually, are post-mortems always required in the sake of expat deaths? The answer to that is an emphatic no, actually. It's correct to say that if a post-mortem is required, the only place that will carry out post-mortems on foreigners is in Bangkok. So if a post-mortem is required, then the body has to go to Bangkok for a post-mortem. Now, post-mortems are only required is when the death is unclear why the death has happened. If the doctors are not sure of the cause of death, then they will probably require a post-mortem. If the police are not happy about the course of death, they can also require a post-mortem, and then they must be done. However, in the majority of cases where the health status of the deceased prior to the death has been known, and the cause of death can be easily assessed, then certainly the funeral can go ahead fairly quickly with the necessary death certificate being issued. So that's the basic questions I have. Now the other question, of course, is the one that most people are probably interested in, and that's the associated costs involved in either cremations or funerals, burials here in Thailand. And at the end of this video, I give I outline all the costs associated with the various options that you have. Also, during the video, I also talk about the costs in the relevant locations that I visited, and so therefore it's worth watching there, and I'll inform you the costs as we go along. There is a lot to consider, and if you don't have a partner and you're not married, and this is concerning you, there is a few organisations that will assist in helping you sort out your arrangements for your death. In actual fact, in some of them, in a lot of places, you can actually prepay for your own funeral. There is a premium for doing this, obviously, because no one knows exactly how long they're going to live and what the cost will be on the day. So what you're quoted is a cost with a premium to cover all the likelihood of changes in costs between the time you take out the plan to the date that it's implemented. Now there is one exceptional case actually, and it is an exceptional case, and it's a very superb option for those that might be interested, but that's not going to be covered here in this video. That will be the subject of my very next video, because it's an important option and it's a very attractive option to some parties, I am sure. So that will be covered in the next video. Now this video we're going to continue is split into really 4 sections, and that's with the various areas that I've looked at to get a feel of what's happening here and what the costs, etc., and how things work. I visited 2 temples here in Pattaya, and each of those are covered in the video. There's the Chai Mon Kol in Pattaya Thai. There's also the Potis Ampan in Naklua, and the 2 burial options, one here in Pattaya at the St. Nicholas Church on Sukhumvit, and the other one I cover is the cemetery in Bangkok. Now, I've got to say, by the way, the Protestant cemetery in Bangkok, it's not only Protestants that they accept all sorts of people for burials now. They've even got a Jewish element in there that was it was used prior to a Jewish cemetery being established in Bangkok, but they now have that in Bangkok. So Jews no longer get interred in the Protestant cemetery. They have their own facility. So please keep watching, and thank you again for coming here, and I'll summarize it all at the end of the video with the various costs. Thank you. So here we are in Wat Chai Mong Ko, the Royal Monastery at the bottom of Pattaya South Road, near Second Road, and a very, very impressive setup indeed. This has been very popular in the past with foreigners for cremations. To get the full Buddhist cremation here is, I believe, quite expensive actually. But I've talked to the organizer of cremations here, and in actual fact, for a no-frills service, it costs about 28,000 baht, and that includes the cask and the presentation of the remains the following day back to the next of kin. And then it's up to yourselves actually whether you have a Christian service, or you have a humanitarian service, or indeed if you have no service at all. It's really up to you what you want, but obviously the various add-ons cost money. As you can see, it's quite a large facility here with many, many interesting buildings. Being a royal monastery, one would assume that the royal family have visited here at some stage or other. And also, being a monastery, it has a teaching facility here for monks to learn more about the Buddhist thoughts and practices. These very beautiful old trees here. They hold many functions here. I see they have school functions and other functions for charities, etc. Use the grounds of the temple here fairly regularly. or did before COVID anyway. So here we have the actual cremation facility here. In this square. Here you can see the storage for casks, etc. This is a very modern facility actually. It's although the building's probably been here for quite some time. It is now an oil-fired incinerator, electronically controlled, and it operates at extremely high temperatures and makes the cremation process actually very fast. So this is where whoever's going to organise the cremation needs to come down to. The office is here in this square, over there. And you can go in there and present the necessary paperwork and then have the cremation booked in. And this is where it will all happen. The last move of the mortal remains goes up these stairs and into the incinerator and comes out as ashes. So if you choose Choi Mon Ko, this is where you end up. Okay, so here we are at Photisampan temple down in Naklua, on Mend Naklua Road. Another very popular one with foreigners to be cremated. Obviously not as cosmetically nice as the other temple we visited, Choi Man Ko, but it's more of a functional temple here, I would expect. There is a large yard. Now, costs here. Well, we've been quoted between 15 and 18,000 for a bare bones cremation here, which I think is going to be typical of most basic temples. Certainly here in Pattaya and other built up areas, but probably in Thailand in general, I would think. It's As I say, it's a very functional temple. Actually, I believe there's actually a junior school incorporated in this temple also. It's certainly nice enough, and I'm guessing there's no nice place for cremations or saying goodbye to people actually. It's just getting the job done, isn't it, really? This is the main temple here facility. Certainly a lot of animals and birds running around the yard. I think this is part of the school complex over here, but of course with the COVID thing just now, it's all shut down. A lot of people bring their pets here when they can no longer look after them and give them to the temple to hopefully look after them or find them new homes. And here we are. We're now approaching the cremation building. So there we are. Once again, this is another oil-fired facility, electronically controlled. So high temperature incineration process that ensures a speedy cremation. And And the mortal remains goes in this building for the last journey, and then comes out as ashes and particles, no longer really part of this world, which is a very sad time for those left behind. So there we are, that's a visit to the two temples here in, that I chose to visit here in Pattaya, which I think kind of demonstrates the sort of range of facilities you can have for a basic cremation. Now, these costs are for a no service cremation. There's no ceremony to it, and it's up to you whether you add another type of ceremony to the proceedings. And once again, the cost here include the casket and obviously the return of the ashes, etc., back to the next of kin. Okay, that's it from here. So we're now at St. Nicholas Catholic Church on Sukhumvit Road in the centre of Pattaya, just past Pattaya Centre Road, Pattaya Klang, and very surprising to me on my visit here that the facility that they offer here, which is to me very, very, very beautiful. And let me show you. It's right behind me here is a wonderful cemetery that accept Christians for burial here. It's obviously been here for many years, you know, and right in the centre of Pattaya, and I wasn't even aware of it. It's a very nice feeling and ambience around here. As you can see, there actually there's a lot of graves here already, but apparently they're still accepting burials. Up there, that looks like an unused space where they may get some interments. If your choice is for a funeral and a Christian burial, and you live near Pattaya, then this would obviously be the place to come. It's very, very nice. See, there appears to be spaces here too. I've already discussed it with my wife, my exit plan. And I had opted for a cremation actually, but you know, a burial might be very nice also. Well tended as well. Sawadee krap. Well tended as well. Obviously well looked after. And there is space over to the back wall there too, so maybe there is a fair bit of space around. So the cost of a burial. I've been told, and I haven't confirmed it, that it's a basic funeral starts for a burial here starts from 60,000 baht. But of course that is a very no-frills type basic funeral. There are a lot of options concerned with a funeral, of course. You can see these graves, yeah, very, very old. This must be the original part of the cemetery down here. But this over here looks like a fresh 2 graves actually, and they're well tended, they've got flowers there, etc. So 60,000 bahts, that's £1,500. 60,000 baht. I keep getting picked up for saying bahts when I should just say baht. It's a habit I can't get out of, I'm afraid, but so you'll have to excuse me. 2561. This is obviously a double plot here. 2561. So that's 3 years ago that gentleman was buried here. I notice that there's all nationalities here, many nationalities actually. It's Spanish, Egyptian even. Some very sad messages too, which is always the case in a cemetery actually. When someone goes, it leaves a lot of grief behind. Here's one grave getting watered here. For those that have passed, it's the worries are over. The time is in the past, and for those that are left behind, there's just the grief and the misery of losing someone very close, and that can be very, very stressful as well. And it can also be stressful in the aspect that if they've got to then organise the funeral and all the various aspects required to carry out the funeral or the cremation. And if you're making a plan, you need to think about that as well. Who's actually going to do this? Who do you want to do this actually? Because it is an important aspect. And I know when I've seen some people pass in the past, those left behind have been in no real condition at that time to be thinking straight. So it's better that you put your plan down and make sure everyone's aware of it, and make the arrangements yourself if you can. That's what I would recommend anyway, and that's certainly what I intend to do. So there we have the cemetery at St. Nicholas Catholic Church in the centre of Pattaya, and it's no place I'd be in a rush to get to, but it's certainly not a bad place to bring your mortal remains and have them here. In fact, if you look here, we even have a 3 plot here. So there's 3 people in this plot. That's quite common in the UK. In fact, my mother's family, they had a 4 plot in the local cemetery in Scotland where we lived, and they filled it up with their family members. So here we go. something else to think about for those that might be leaning towards a burial. I can't emphasize enough, actually, particularly like I'm 72 and I know things can change rapidly. I feel healthy at the moment, touch wood, and I hope I can go on a few years longer, but things can change very, very rapidly. With a heart attack or a stroke or some other unfortunate scenario, and all of a sudden the possibility of making your choices and your plan has disappeared. So if you want to do it, I think do it sooner rather than later, and you'll have the peace of mind to know that, okay, it's now done. Okay, then I've just managed to have a chat with the office here to confirm up on details, and the very strange setup actually, because I went into the church area and I spoke with the priest here, and it transpires that the cemetery here is a different entity now to the church. It used to belong to, but now this has been taken over by a private company under certain conditions from the church, and it's administered by this private company. So I've spoken to them also, and they were very reticent actually to give me a price for a burial here, although other people have told me about the 60,000 bahts. But what they did say, which is not to be unexpected, is that this cemetery is only for Catholic Christians, and if you're not a Catholic, you will not be accepted into this cemetery. And the remaining spaces here are primarily reserved, with few exceptions, for people that attend the church here. So there's the criteria you've got to really meet to get a place here, and that's you've got to come to St. Nicholas Church and be a practicing Catholic here, which, if you're still alive and living in Pattaya, that should be no problem. You can start doing that if you haven't been doing it before. But you've got to be able to prove that you're a Catholic to get here. And they do have other options actually. As long as you're a Catholic, and no matter whether you attended the church here or not, they will inter your ashes here, but only for specific times and at a specific price. For instance, to get your ashes interred here for 10 years costs 5,000 bahts, and to have your ashes interred here for 20 years is 20,000 baht. Sorry, it's 5,000. Sorry, 10,000 bahts, yes, for 10 years, and 20,000 bahts for 20 years. So what's done after that, I suppose they just discard them, put them on the gardens or whatever. But that's the options here at St. Nicholas Church, which are not as easy to meet as I thought they might be. Nevertheless, let me just put good news on the horizon. There is another facility here in Chonburi, down in about an hour's drive from Pattaya, where any Christians, any religion or any non-religion are accepted for burial, and it's a very, very beautiful place, and that is the subject of my next video. There is also another option if you're determined on a burial, and that is the Bangkok Protestant Cemetery in Bangkok, right in the city centre on the banks of the Chao Phraya River. That is another option. So there we go. That's it from here at St. Nicholas Church in Pattaya. So this is the last of the 4 that we've looked at. This is the second burial option. This is the Bangkok Protestant Cemetery in Bangkok. It's right in the city centre, and it's very close to the Chao Phraya River. Now this cemetery has been in existence since around 1853, so nearly 200 years now. And consequently, there's a lot of people buried here. And it's not only Protestants actually, there is other religions in there, including Jews actually, because there was a Jewish commitment, a Jewish contingent buried in here before the Jews got their own cemetery in Bangkok. And I believe as of today it accepts many various religions, etc., for burial, should they so wish to be buried here. So this is really an option for you. As I said, there's a lot of people buried here, and there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of very famous people and a lot of very infamous people, I would imagine, also. So it's an option anyway, and it's Bangkok's not too far from Chonburi. It's not too far from anywhere actually, because wherever you are in Thailand, you could opt to be buried here in Bangkok. It's only a case of probably the further away you are, the more it's going to cost you for transportation, etc., etc. And as you can see by the various structures here, it's changed over the years. Some of these people aren't under the ground; they're in tombs on top of the ground, and in other areas they are buried. So it just reflects the many, many years that it has actually been in existence. As far as I'm aware, then we're still looking at 60,000 baht as a basic starting point. But as I say, if you're interested in it, then the sooner you get the ball rolling and get the discussions going, the quicker you will have an answer for it. So there we are, people. There's a view of the various facilities that can be available. Of course, when you look at your own areas, there's probably lots of temples, etc., around about that you may prefer to go. I'm sure that there's quite a lot more in Pattaya, and you could spend a long time going around all the ones that you might be considering. However, I think it's fair to say that they're all going to fall into certain categories, and you're going to get the sort of standard no-frills temples where they get just basic grounds, etc., and there's quite a few of them around, to the more upmarket, more deluxe temples, I'd say, where the scenery is beautiful, the ambience is nice, and of course the associated costs will reflect in the facilities and the ambience, of course, as well. So let's talk about costs, and the rest of it that might be of interest to you actually. So let's start with the approximate cost of a no-frills cremation. When I say no frills, I mean no frills. It's a basic cremation. They supply the coffin, etc., and they'll do the cremation, and the next day they will present the bag of the remains. Now that can range from 15,000 to up to probably about 60,000 bahts if you go to the very high-end temples, but that's with no ceremony or anything like that. Don't forget that I've seen a couple of Thai funerals. I've been at one in particular that cost over 1 million bahts for a 7-day wake prior to the funeral, where several monks came to the house twice a day to chant their best wishes or whatever they're chanting, and to eat as well. So when you look at those costs, as I say, something like 15,000, which I think a lot of the basic temples round about, you're talking in that order, 15 to 17,500 maybe, and that is probably as low as you're going to get it. However, so saying, whether you like it or not, and whether you're going to opt for any additional services like a service or like a humanitarian type service, or floral tributes, floral arrangement, whether you're going to opt for all that is really a thing between, I think you've got to decide on, or decide along with your partner. But there is going to be additional costs, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, there'll be associated costs with getting paperwork probably. There might be associated costs if indeed there has to be a post-mortem. There will be, you need to also think about, if you die at home, then where are you going to keep the body until such time as it's time to go to the crematorium or to the burial. I've seen where caskets can be hired and they bring them to the house and they plug them in. It's basically a casket type fridge that chews down very quickly, and they keep the body at home in this, and they rent this on a daily basis. But these are all things that would have to be discussed at the time. I don't think there's a huge cost behind them, but it's just additional items that will be needed for sure, and we cannot say that it's going to be X amount and that's it, so be aware. Okay, a burial, a no-frills burial. Now, that's a much more difficult thing to assess, no-frills burial. Well, they say that would cost, with or without a ceremony. A burial cost 75 to 120,000 baht for the basic burial. Now, there is an option that I've not talked about yet, and that's one of my next video, which you should watch, because that would be maybe a big interest to you. But the basic burial of 75 to 120,000 baht, of course, that's very easily thrown off the edge when you start talking about choice of casket, etc. Would you buy a teak casket, or would you buy, there's all sorts of ranges in caskets, etc., and linings and floral tributes, and also the gravestones, tombstones, how they're going to be made, and are you going to have marble, you're going to have, etc. There's a lot of options to be considered there, and I think if you're going to go for things like that, it's worth discussing that a great deal with your partner, and maybe looking at your partner, your wife, whatever, because it's an option. These are options that have to be understood, what your wishes are, what their wishes are. In actual fact, that's a good point, because during the course of making these videos, and I'm saying to the wife, well, this is what I want and this is what I want to do, and I've made my choices already in the last few days with what I've seen, etc. also. And I said to the wife, well, I want to do this and I want to do that, I want to do that. She turned to me and she said, yes, that's what you want. She said, well, what about what I want? And I said, what do you mean, what about what you want? I said, it's me that's getting cremated, so it's my wishes that stand. She says, no, she says, I'm your family, and your daughter's your daughter, and we have a say in what happens as well. And yes, that's true, actually. It's very, very true. So I will discuss this further with my wife and the arrangements for my funeral. But it's something that has to be discussed at length, Now then, this is all very fine, and I would say that the easiest form of dealing with bereavement, and probably the best economy, is for one of the family, when we pass away, to go to the temple, and to go and get the paperwork, and to go and make all the arrangements, etc. And then you're going to get the best value for money, for sure. That's the way I feel about it. But when you look at the practicalities of it, when you take into account things like grief, these aspects all take a toll, and it makes life just that bit harder, you know, for those left behind. Hopefully they might have friends that would help. A lot of Thai people, that's the way they do it. They do it as a family. They mess around. But there again, you see, if you're making your own expat type arrangements, and it's very hard maybe for Thai partners, etc., to follow those arrangements and know exactly what's incurred. So there is something else to consider, and that's prepaid funerals. Now there's a few companies that offer that roundabout. I have some quotations here, and the first one is for a cremation with or without a ceremony, and obviously that can be that can be expanded again. But they're quoting a cremation with or without a ceremony, 44 to 65,000 baht, depending on the temple, etc. And that is the prepaid option as of today's price. A burial with or without ceremony, that ranges from 130 to 200,000 baht. Once again, that's a guesstimated cost, and that will vary, but when you sit down and you talk to the people, and you may be able to cut the cost a little bit, and there's quite a high probability you might be able to increase the cost a little bit when you start talking about particular arrangements. And it is it's a sad event, but it can be it can be a stylish event as well. And I'm sure it's my feeling that when I exit this world, I want to do it in a degree of style that doesn't imitate that of a passing of a pauper, but I don't want to waste all my family's inheritance by giving me a magnificent send-off. So there's a balance to be struck somewhere along the line. So options, there is options. You can have your ashes, if you've been cremated, you can have your ashes repatriated back to your home country. Maybe if your family's there and you've got no ties here, maybe your family will want the ashes back, your ashes back there. That's something something else you may need to discuss with your relatives, etc. While you're making your plan. What do you want done with your ashes? If you're getting them sent back by cargo to your home country, and it doesn't state any particular country, it estimates the cost at about 12,000 baht to have them sent by cargo. And what I don't understand is they say by post the transfer of ashes would be 8,000 baht. Why post should be cheaper, I thought it'd be the other way around. But anyway, that's what they're quoting, and that's what it is. You can, of course, have your full mortal remains repatriated to your home country, if that's what you want. And I know it has happened to several people that their families wanted the full mortal remains returned to their own countries for burial in their own country or for cremation in their own country. That can be done for between 150,000 to 180,000 baht. So that is also a full repatriation of the mortal remains back to your home country. And that about covers all the aspects of this video, and I'm sure it's given you, those that want to consider it, it's given food for thought and the way forward. Now, I have to thank a company, a very well respected Asian company, Nirvana Memorial, for their assistance in the making of this video and providing me with various aspects of information, etc. And my appreciation goes out to them. And they also sound like a very genuine and caring organisation to take care of your arrangements for you, if you should need them anyway. And very shortly, in the next, these people are situated in 5 countries in Asia here, Singapore and Indonesia and some other places, here in Thailand obviously, and they're very shortly, I'm told, going to be opening, within the next month actually, opening an office in Pattaya, and I will put their email contact and the telephone number on this video, so you can actually reference to them if you want. There are other companies, and I'm sure if you've done some searching around you'll find them. So that's it. Time to start thinking, and maybe time to start planning, and as I'm doing actually. It's been a heads up for me and an eye-opener for me as well. Thank you again for watching, and let's not have COVID hasten our departure. Let's try and survive, particularly here in Thailand, where vaccinations seem to be a big talking point with a no action thing, and getting effective vaccinations here is what the most of us foreigners are waiting for, and hopefully that will come soon. But once again, take care. Sorry for rabbiting on. Bye for now.